Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Most Excellent Entertainment. And continuing on with Comedy Month, the funniest month of the year. So when I was checking up, doing some research on this guy, I literally laughed out loud multiple times. So I think that's a good sign for what's going to happen this week. He is a comedian, an actor, a podcaster, probably a lot of other things that I'm missing. Please welcome Jonesy to the show this week.
Thank you for having me. Yes, I'm all of those things, and plus I'm a shortstop. So just want to let you guys know, this is you're looking at a cannon right here. I got a cannon for an arm. I was blessed. I was born. I got a small penis, but I mean, I really got a big shoulder.
Hey, they compensate one way or another, right? So, you've had some you've been on some pretty amazing sets. Like you appeared on Gotham, Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt, Drunken History. Yeah. So how did those opportunities come about, and what was it like? I mean, I'm just jumping right in here. We're not even doing much of an introduction. I apologize.
I mean,
but I'm fascinated. So
if you think your listeners will find it fascinating, I could share a little bit of this. How does it happen? Well, you don't really get to have lines on major shows like that unless you really have an agent. And I was lucky when I moved to New York City. I was young and good looking at the time, and I got a bit of a personality on stage, and someone saw me. And this woman, she worked for Nickelodeon, and she really helped me so much. Her name was Michelle, and I owe so much to her. It's funny how you can be trying to get into something like an industry or a new career or anything, trying to get into a party or get a girlfriend, and you might be ready for it, and you might think like, oh, why isn't anyone giving me a shot? All it takes is one stroke of luck. What do they say about success? It's like preparation meets opportunity. So this woman was like integral to me getting into the world of acting. I was already doing stand-up comedy. I had played music and whatnot, and you don't really need permission to do those things. You could just go out and start doing that stuff. Same with podcasts. You can just start a podcast if you want. You don't need there's no gatekeepers. But to get on TV shows, major gatekeepers, man, major gatekeepers. So I was lucky. She got me in. She got me agent of several agents, and they started submitting me for auditions. And it was just something I was kind of naturally pretty decent at from the very get-go. So I was very fortunate to get these opportunities. Not big roles on these shows, but I got to get on these shows. I didn't know what the hell. I had never been on a set before. I was just kind of winging it. A lot of fun and exciting. Very nervous, of course, being around people like that and having to kind of perform. After a few times, I kind of got the gist of it. But I was lucky to be able to work with some great actors and be on some pretty cool shows. It's just like one episode on that show, but like for me, that's a big deal. I'm a guy from this little poor white town north of Boston. Nobody in my family even leaves the country or does anything, and I moved to New York City, and now I live in LA. I've been able to do these things, and I've been very lucky. And it's been fun working on sets like that. I can say it's a lot of there's a lot of like sitting around and eating like amazing food, I would say.
Right.
They have these, especially for network television, like Gotham was a network show, Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt was a network show. You get to you just sit around, man. I swear, it's crazy. You'll be sitting around and it's not even lunchtime, right? We might have just had a big breakfast. It was an amazing breakfast. You could eat, you could just get whatever you wanted. Like, oh, I want eggs Benedict. Sure, whatever you want. And then it's not even lunchtime. And people just walk around with like trays of Shake Shack burgers or whatever. Or just like these expensive cupcakes. Or they're just walking around with like, anyone want strawberry shortcake? You're like, where are you getting all this food, man? And it's just completely free. I don't know, people that do that full time, I don't know how they don't put on 100 pounds. So There's a lot of that going on. The other thing is you get to talk to some people who are they're famous people, I got to hang out with Tina Fey all day. And then Tina brought me back because she thought I was really funny. She brought me back to do this other side project. So I did that. And then she brought me in to do this voiceover stuff. And so I got to hang out with her a few times. And man, it was just like, she's a comedy god. She's like on the Mount Rushmore of comedy writers, in my opinion. She was a head writer for SNL. I mean, that's just that right there.
You can't get bigger than that.
Yeah, she's written movies too, written television shows. She's just like on that Mount Rushmore of comedy writers. And so hanging out with someone like that, I mean, I wouldn't give that up for anything. That was great. You know, even though I had a small part, I mean, it was just like spending time with people like that. Having someone like that say, "Wow, you were so funny. You stole the scene." And like, it's like, you know,
Yeah.
like you could stab me now. I'm okay to die. This is like great.
Right. Right.
Those
Yeah.
moments like your viewers and listeners might find that kind of fascinating. Those moments, you know, they're small, but they're so you know, when you live a life like me, I'm just a regular guy from I'm just like this Red Sox fan from north of Boston. I'm like nothing, you know, I never did anything. You know, I'm just happy to get out of my town. Those moments, although small, they like they mean everything to me. They're moments that I'll look back on when I'm on my deathbed and be like, oh, that was pretty cool. You know, that was pretty cool. You know, so I've been lucky to have some of those moments. You know, I hope to have more. Maybe we'll have some more. I keep grinding, but yeah, it was wonderful. It was wonderful and a great experience for me.
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah. Speaking of grinding, like you are so busy. It seems like you've always got a show coming up. You do a daily podcast,
Yeah,
and
that's right.
knowing just how hard it is to do a weekly podcast is
Yeah.
nuts. I mean, how do you get the energy and to do all these different things and to just stay busy all the time? Like it
Oh,
just seems
it's. Have you ever heard of
crazy.
something? Have you ever heard of something called cold brew?
Yeah. 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 Absolutely.
I got a cold brew maker, bro. So,
Nice.
uh,
Nice.
so yeah, I'm fortunate enough that I'm able to be busy, partly by choice and partly by people uh, giving me opportunities and trusting me, putting me on shows. So during the day, I do my podcast. I just finished recording today's episode and release. Uh, I released it. I release them every day around 3 o'clock. Uh,
Okay.
and then in the evening I'll go out and do a show. That's typically, I mean, it sounds like I'm really busy, but I do have, there is some down. I can kind of like, I'm blessed. I can like sleep until 9. I usually sleep until 9. I'm
Yeah.
drinking coffee and like researching my weird news stories for the podcast, which is called Weird AF News. This was
Yeah.
my little plug here, and here's my terrible towel for Weird AF News that one of my fans made me. So yeah, so I'm working on the podcast. I do 5 a week. For Monday through Thursday, it's weird news from around the world, and then on Friday I just do weird news from Florida. So
But it gets
Florida
its own day.
Friday, yeah,
It's awesome.
it's the most popular episode of the week, and so yeah, I'm doing that 5 days a week. I'm about to hit 2,000 episodes. I'm somewhere around there, and then at night I go out and do stand up comedy. And even if I don't have a show, I like to get out and
Yeah.
go to hang out at a club and hang out with, because those are not only are they're my coworkers, but they're also they're kind of like they're my friends now. That's my kind of social. I don't hang out with like too often with like people who aren't comedians. Like I'm out at night, I'm hanging with comedians at their show, or I'll just go to a comedy club in Hollywood and hang out there. I'll see people that I know, and sometimes they'll even put me on stage if I'm lucky, if
Awesome.
someone doesn't show up. So that's kind of the grind, but it's not too bad. It's really not too bad.
Cool.
I know guys who are working a hell of a lot harder than I am, and I often feel as though I'm not doing enough as well. So
Yeah.
that's a thing. But
Just keep
yeah,
pushing.
I keep pushing and we do our thing. But I don't have to work a day job. You know what I mean? Like I know
And
guys
that's
who.
amazing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I know comedians who have to work a day job, right? So and then maybe they also have a podcast, and maybe they're trying to go on auditions, and they're just, because they work a day job, they're very constricted, and it's very stressful for them. But I haven't had to work a day job in a while. I'm blessed that I make enough money doing stand up and with my podcast that I don't have to do that. So I'm really lucky, and in that sense, anyways. And it's something that everyone can be done. It can be. I'm proof that it can be done. You could do it. You have to show up every day, though. You have to show up every day. Like, I wasn't making this money on the podcast for the first 1,000 episodes. I'll tell you right now. So imagine the
Right.
commitment to keep going. It's hard, but
Yeah.
keep going.
Yeah. I think that's the biggest thing with my podcast. Like I think you're our 41st episode.
That's a lot. That's good.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, we're here every week. Like before we came on, I was telling you the story, like we weren't going to have a guest and I interviewed my producer because we have to put something out. I feel like if you
Yeah.
miss a week, then people are like, they start abandoning you. And I feel like we're finally getting some momentum going. So it
So
gives
you
me
have to
some
keep.
hope,
Yeah,
you
you
know?
have to keep it, and you gotta just do it like it's like going to the gym, right? I mean,
Yeah.
you get into that mindset where you're like, I'm going to work out every day for my life. You know, I'm going to show up every day. And eventually your body and your mind and your routine just adjusts. And you're like, this is just something I'm going to do every day, whatever it might be. I'm just going to do this. I'm just going to show up and do it. And you can get into that. You can train yourself to do that. And so, yeah, you got to keep showing up. And even if your guest doesn't show up, you know, maybe you drag your landlord in here and you're like, now you got your landlord on the show,
Yeah.
but you got to do it. And you're doing it, you know, you're at 40 episodes. That's, you know, I think most podcasts, from my experience,
Yeah.
From what I've witnessed, is they at 20 episodes, and there's 20 episodes, there's no money coming in.
Right.
People get discouraged and they give it up. They give it up.
Yeah.
That's very
Yeah.
common. So you're doing it. You're doing it.
Yeah, that's one thing I want to say about Tyler, my producer. Like when we initially started, I told him that I was going to give him a certain amount of money per episode. We weren't bringing in any money, so I would give him what I could when I can. And now at this point, he's in it for the future, which that is so huge to me. Like I appreciate that he believes in me. I appreciate that people come on here and talk to me. Rounding up guests and stuff can be tough, but this is just something that I really want to do. So, and I
Yeah,
think I'm pretty good at it.
and there's resources to find guests. You know, I'm a member of some. I'm sure you are as well. Some Facebook groups where you can offer yourself as a guest, or you can request guests if you want. So you should be able to keep funneling them through. It just takes just got to go out there and put a little effort into that. That's some of the behind the scenes work that nobody sees.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, right now we're booked until the middle of June, so
that's amazing.
Yeah,
that's
we're doing
great.
pretty good. Yeah. So, I did want to ask you. We're going to go back and talk a little bit about how you got started and stuff, but I do want to ask you, what is the weirdest story? I mean, you've done 2,000 episodes, so that's a lot to look back on. But is there anything that sticks out in your mind as the weirdest story that you found for Weird AF News?
One of the weird stories that really sticks with me is there was this. It was a band, and one of the bandmates had a crush on a bandmate's girlfriend, and wanted to steal the girlfriend from his bandmate. And the plan that he came up with was to secretly dose the bandmate with estrogen. I don't know if it was a powder or a liquid, but he kept putting estrogen in like his energy drinks and stuff.
Yeah.
Or he would bring a smoothie to band practice and give it to him. It had estrogen in it. He was trying to like turn him into a woman so he could steal his woman. And the story, I thought the story was so great. In fact, and I'll do this occasionally when I love a story. I wrote a song about it that I actually put on the podcast as well. And it was like a heavy metal song. And it went like, I turned my bandmate into a woman. I stole his woman, turned my bandmate into a woman. I stole his woman, put the estrogen in his drink. Then I bought him a dress, lyrics like that.
That's hilarious.
And
I'm going to have to look for that one.
I still will listen to that song occasionally because it just brings me joy. That whole story is wild. He ended up like going to jail for, I think, a period of time. Yeah. He ruined the dude's life. I mean, the guy didn't lose his girlfriend, but his apparently his mind, like it did something to him. Like he couldn't sleep. His personality was changing. He was confused often. Like it really did something to him, and kind of like it really did bring him down. But I mean, what a crazy story and a weird thing. I mean, human behavior is weird.
Yeah. I mean, that's such a strange. Like, I'm not gonna try to be a cool guy around this girl and maybe woo her a little bit. I'm just gonna turn her dude into a chick. Like that's his mindset.
That was his mindset. Like I'm not gonna be a better musician than him. I'm not gonna. I'm not even gonna bring her flowers to the next show. I'm gonna slip this guy some chemicals in the form of estrogen and just see what happens. I mean, the whole thing is so bizarre, right?
It's really strange, man.
Yeah, I love that one.
Like biological warfare or something. Like I would assume you're in trouble for that.
Yeah, biological warfare. Yeah, maybe that's what it. Maybe you could call it that. Yeah, sure.
Because I know like, if you spit on someone, it's like some kind of a biological attack that they charge you with. So I'm sure.
I think so. I think if you spit on someone, that is a thing. There's a law. There's a law for that.
So I'm sure estrogen falls in that category.
It's it could be even fall under poisoning. Maybe.
Yeah, sure.
It could be poisoning of some sort. He was definitely. It definitely screwed him up. So it was a form of poison. He was all messed up, man. He was all messed up as a result of that.
I
It's
can't even
crazy.
imagine, dude. Man. Jeez, the lengths that some people will go.
That's love, baby.
Yeah, it is. Following your heart, man. You gotta do what you gotta do. Well, so okay. I'm centering. All right. That was funny though, man.
I'm glad you enjoy
So
that.
thank you. Yeah. So you mentioned that you were already doing stand up and playing music before you got the acting gigs. Was
Yeah.
that kind of your was doing stand up your introduction into the entertainment business? Is that what you initially started out doing, or was it music, or was it both?
Yeah. It was music first,
Okay.
and then got into stand up because a buddy of mine who he went to see me play music, and then he's like, "But you got to come see me do stand up." And I was like, "Oh, I'll come." Um,
Yeah.
I was very young at the time, and I went. It was just an open mic, which I didn't know. I didn't even know they existed. Stand up comedy open
Right.
mics at the time. You know,
Right.
this was like 20 plus years ago, and I went, and that was my first experience of a comedy open mic, and it was so bad. You know, it
Yeah.
was like it's a train wreck, man. It was such a
Yeah.
train wreck, and I thought to myself, God, I've always kind of been funny, but but I thought to myself, like this, if these guys are getting up there and doing, then it's that like I could do better than this, and
Right.
and I just thought I was just kind of fascinated by it. And then after my roommate was actually okay at it, and then
Yeah.
after we were going over his material, and I seemed to have a gift of helping him with his material. It seemed I had some pretty good, what I thought were pretty good suggestions on what to try. And he goes, "Oh yeah, maybe I'll do that instead." And he goes, "I'm going to go to the next one they're having." And I go, "Well, when is that? Maybe I'll come up with 5 minutes, and maybe I'll go with you." And so that's exactly what I did. I came up with some stuff, and I went as well. And I didn't do very well, but I already had stage presence. I was already comfortable on a microphone, so I already had that going for me. So to me, it was kind of easy to talk on a microphone. Um,
Yeah.
and so I thought to myself, well, I have no problem getting up there and doing this again. And then it just became a challenge for me to get laughs. And I'm like, I know I can get laughs. And so we were going together, and we were both trying to develop this. And then he ended up dropping out, and as many new comedians do, because it's
Yeah.
very, very hard. He,
Yeah.
he eventually had some kids and got married, and all that stuff went away. And I just kept at it. And then I eventually stopped playing music and started doing the stand up. And then from there, got into acting. Well, doing stand up. And what happened was doing stand up in Boston and getting okay at it. It was like, well, what's the next step? Well, the next step is to go to New York City to do it. So I was like, oh, that sounds like fun. I got laid off from my job at that time. I go, well, I'll use this opportunity to go to New York City and let's check this out. So I was like, I'll just give myself 6 months in New York. Let's see. And ended up staying there for 12 years. So yeah, so
Nice.
the stand up is actually what got me to New York, which then opened up all the opportunities for me since then. And I stayed in New York, and then now I live in Los Angeles. And so yeah, that's kind of how it evolved.
Okay. So what would you say the difference is between, and obviously you've gotten better, so the difference is also
Yeah.
your performance, but what would you say the difference is between like Boston, New York, and LA? Or California. Are you in LA?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Those different comedy scenes. Like I feel like Boston would be a tough crowd.
Yeah.
I just especially to start out. Like that just
Yeah. The crowd. Yeah. I mean, it depends. The people I find in Boston, I can, if they're paying attention, I can get them to laugh. I got them to laugh. They're good. They're good for that. They're not a stuffy crowd. They're working class
right, sure.
people.
Yeah.
They're working class people. If they go to a comedy show and they paid to enter, they're gonna go, and they're there for the laughter. They're there to have a good time. The problem in Boston is not a lot of shows were like that. A lot of times I was doing shows because I was new. I was doing shows at bars, and
Right.
Boston is a lot of sports bars. It's very sports town. So
Yeah.
you would be competing with like the Patriots games, Celtics games, Red Sox. You were always competing with sports on TV, trying to grab eyeballs off of people who are there to watch sports. It's not easy.
Yeah.
But once you get them, they're very good laughers. Boston people have a good sense of humor. In general, I think they're not easily offended by any
Right.
means.
Yeah.
People in Boston are quite offensive, as a matter of fact. So
Right. I
they,
have friends from Boston, so yeah.
yeah, you can kind of, you can insult a Bostonian and they don't take, they're like, you, and they get you back. I mean,
Yeah.
Boston people are really cool like that.
Yeah.
So for a crowd, I really, in general, like a Boston crowd, except for those sports bar shows, which still go on in Boston. They're tough stuff. But if you go to a club, I like those crowds a lot. In New
Yeah.
York, New York was a little more difficult with the crowds because I had never encountered tourists. So
Mm, yeah.
especially doing shows in the clubs in Manhattan, you got a lot of tourists.
Yeah.
And so now I'm trying to get laughs from people from Kentucky and Missouri, or maybe Canada, even, or like places like that. And so that was a little harder in my experience, relating to people from all over the country. But eventually, I figured that out as well.
Right.
And now coming to LA, the shows are, it's tougher to get on stage in LA. I would say that's, to me, that's the standout quality of doing stand up in LA. It's harder to get on stage at the clubs because there's so many famous people here.
Yeah.
A
Yeah.
lot of performers are famous. And they may not even be necessarily great comedians, and they may not even have devoted their life to that. They just may be actors that also dabble in stand-up
Mhm.
comedy. They may be popular podcasters that dabble in stand-up comedy, but they're people who are known.
Right.
And so they get a lot of the stage time before someone like me, who's not really known. Although
Yeah.
I would say in many of those instances I'm a stronger comedian because I just do it more than they do. They don't have to do it.
Yeah.
They're they're on TV shows or whatever they're doing. And when you're on a TV show, by the way, you're up at 5 a.m. every day because the call times
Right.
are so early. So this is one reason why they can't do stand up a lot. But when they're not shooting their shows, then they'll start doing it. You'll see. And then but they kind of take precedence because out here in Hollywood, the clubs, they want to make a billboard and they want to make a flyer that has people like David Spade on the show. You know what I mean? They want people like Adam Carolla on the show. They
Yeah.
want people on the show that you recognize, because
Right.
tourists come to Hollywood. They want to go home with a story. Oh, did you see a famous person? Oh my God, yeah. I saw Judd Apatow was doing stand up at the show I was at last night, and so this sort of thing happens, and so you just have to. It's something you have to accept. It's hard, but this isn't an easy thing to do. So this is just part of it's just part of the many roadblocks towards success, and so
Right.
I get a lot of no's and who are you, but you know that just makes me grind a little harder and try to get funnier and funnier. A lot of that pressure makes me, it's why I've gotten funnier.
Yeah.
Pressure makes a diamond, as they say. So I'm a very funny stand-up comic. I'm proud to say now, and it's because of all of that adversity.
Yeah.
It's forced me to get funnier.
Yeah. So I've been to two. It's funny. You just made me think about this. Like I've been to two comedy shows in my life. I love stand up. I grew up watching it on TV, like evening at the Improv and Showtime at the Apollo and all that kind of stuff. But I saw Comedy Sports in Milwaukee, which was really fun. It was so funny. And then Kid from Kid and Play was doing
Oh
stand
yeah,
up.
Chris, what's his name? Chris something.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah. And so
yeah,
that was odd. That show was packed. Like there were so many people there to see Kid from Kid and Play do stand
that's
up.
right.
None of us knew if he was funny. Like none of us. We all just knew he was the guy from Kid and Play. So
And
it's
the
an
club and
odd,
the
yeah,
and these clubs, they don't care if
right,
the performer is funny because the performer is selling out.
yeah,
Tickets are
yeah,
so, they don't care. That's why TikTokers are becoming popular bookings at clubs now.
sure,
They'll book a TikToker because the TikToker will sell the place out, and they don't even care what the TikToker does on the stage that night. Whether the TikToker
right,
might be funny, it doesn't. Whether they might have been only doing stand up for a year, they don't care. They don't care. There's a lot of that going on, which
yeah,
guys that are in my position, they get very frustrated by that sort of thing. But there's nothing we can do about it. We have to just work with what we got, and keep grinding, and try to get as many followers as they have.
Right.
I post on my Instagram nearly every day with the hopes that slowly I can build up to be at a level where I have that many followers that I can also sell out a club like a TikToker would,
Yeah.
or Kid will. I
Yeah.
hope to do that someday,
Yeah.
and we'll see. But yeah, that would explain why you'll see weird shows like that. If you come to Hollywood, you'll same stuff. You'll be like,
Yeah.
oh, I didn't know this guy did stand up, and then you'll be like, oh, I see why they don't do a lot of
Mhm.
stand up.
Right. Exactly.
And it can make the show very weird. A lot of these crowds, they don't care though. They just want to be in the same room with this person.
Right. 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 I
It's a
mean,
good story.
I don't remember a single joke that he told, but I remember the crowd reacted to what he said, and it was Hollywood stories. It was,
Sure.
making house party and stuff like that. It wasn't
Yeah.
really jokes. And for me,
Yeah.
I mean, stand up is jokes to me. Like
So
that's
yeah,
what I'm
so
there
that's
to
it's
see.
funny that he tells Hollywood jokes, or
Yeah.
like stories. I know a
Yeah.
couple of comedians in Hollywood that I often see, and they were on SNL way back in the day. They don't really have jokes either. They tell stories about being on SNL. they're
Yeah.
not really they're not really of a stand-up comedy format. It's kind of like storytelling, and there's really, in my opinion, there's not a lot of jokes in there, but I see the reaction they get. The crowd loves it. The crowd eats it up. The crowd wants to hear those stories about Chris Farley or whoever. They love that, and so they're getting something out of it. They
Yeah. For
bring
sure.
something to the show. Those
Yeah.
people will go home. They If they see a show where I'm on the show and Daryl Hammond's on the show, they're going to go
Hmm.
home to Kansas, and they're even though I might have got a lot of laughs, they're not going to tell them about me. They're going to say, I saw Daryl Hammond.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Fair.
we all know who Daryl Hammond is. Oh, you saw
Right.
Daryl Hammond from SNL? Oh my God, that guy's
Right.
so funny. Yeah, yeah. So that's it. And there's something to be said about that. That has value. That does
Yeah.
have value.
Yeah. But I mean, for me personally, like there are jokes from bits that I saw in the 80s when I was 10 that I still remember. Like for me, it's all about the jokes, man. If
I
I'm
love
going to
that.
see a
Yeah.
stand up, yeah, if I'm going to see a stand up or watch something on TV, I want to hear punchlines. I want to hear like a build up to something that I'm not expecting and then laugh my ass off.
Yeah.
That's so
Yeah, you're what I would call a more sophisticated audience. You're my kind of audience. I like
I appreciate that.
audiences that are sophisticated like that, and they really like the jokes, because that's all I bring to the table is jokes. I don't do crowd work. I'm not famous. I don't have Hollywood stories. I just tell
Right.
jokes. So if you like jokes, you'll like what I do. Um, you know, I, I would say not. You go to a comedy club, and maybe the half of the people are like you, and then the other half
Right.
don't. The other half don't give a damn. The other half don't give a damn. So that's what we're kind of dealing with.
Yeah. Yeah. So you talked about crowd work. How hard has like the viral clips and stuff made just being a stand-up comedian? Because it seems like from what I've heard from other people, people go to the shows expecting to interact because
Yeah,
that's what they see on the internet now.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
and I
Well,
mean, Matt Rife had said that his only a couple minutes of his show is crowd work, but the crowd work is unique, and that's why he puts it up. Um, but people expect, people come to the shows expecting to just yell back and forth with you. Like, do you find that?
yeah, I do find that's. I believe that's what's going on when people kind of act up, right? So,
Yeah,
well,
yeah,
I've noticed there's been more heckling the past few years. I think it's because of that, and I think they're just trying to get some engagement,
right,
because monkey see, monkey do, right?
right,
They're seeing clips of crowd work, and they're seeing how someone, you can even now you're now I'm part of the show. You know what I mean? Oh,
right, right.
like I'm supposed to be a crowd person, but now I'm part of the show. So I think some people like that. I think some people enjoy the crowd work because it's so unpredictable.
Hmm.
Um, for the most part, it's crazy things can happen
Right.
with crowd work. I mean, you'll even see a fight maybe could break out. I mean, these kinds of things.
Sure.
People get ejected. It's kind of like it can create a crazy energy,
Yeah.
even a dangerous energy in the room. And I think there's a whole generation that enjoys that kind of thing. I think. Now that makes it easy for a comic that doesn't have jokes to actually get
Right.
somewhere. And
Yeah.
I've witnessed that's been a hard thing to witness. Comedians that, in my opinion, aren't as very good traditional stand-up comedians can't really
Right.
even put jokes together very expertly.
Right.
To see them pass me and sell out, and I've been seeing that for a few years. It's hard. It's hard.
Yeah.
But I mean, if this is something you wanted to do, that is one way to hack the system.
Right.
I like jokes, so I just
Yeah.
would never do that. I mean, I got into it because I love to tell jokes, and I only get so much stage time, so I can't really
Right.
screw around. I got these jokes I need to work on, and so if I had unlimited stage time, maybe I could start screwing around with crowd work here and there, but I just don't get that. So you won't see me really release many clips of my crowd work, because I don't do a lot of it, because every minute of stage time is used to craft jokes. And B, when I do the crowd work, it doesn't really work out enough to share the clip anyways.
Right.
I just did a show in Long Beach, though, where there was a couple of moments. I got the tape. I haven't looked at it yet, but I remember there was like a moment I had some crowd work that kind of worked.
Okay.
I'm curious to watch the recording, because I think I might be able to salvage a little piece of crowd work out of that, which is kind of rare for me. So if it is in there, I'll share it, because they usually do pretty good. But for the most part, I don't have a lot of that material. So, I mean, but it gives you hope if you want to get on these stages and screw around. I mean, a crowd work comic, there's a path for you. There's a path for you. But I don't like the kind of environment it's created at these comedy shows as a result of it. Personally, I don't want people in the crowd yelling stuff. I don't want to ask a question like, you guys ever go to jury duty? I'm just asking the question to get into it. I want like a couple, yeah, or no, that's fine. I don't need someone being like, I went this week and I read that, I don't want, so I'm seeing that's what's happening. And so I have to adjust sometimes, where like, maybe I got to start taking out some of these questions out of my bits, because I don't want some drunk person trying to now be part of the show. I don't want to open the door. You know what I mean? That's just me.
And that's the thing, like, a 2-drink minimum, you're getting some people who are pretty good and trashed. And
that's right.
Yeah, and that could be so disruptive, like, especially if you're up there trying to tell you jokes. And
and the other thing is, like, the other thing that the crowd work comics are sort of baiting them, because some crowd work comics are really good at insulting the crowd, and they can rip somebody apart and tear them a new asshole. And I'm not interested in that at all. I don't want to do that. I don't want to engage with anyone in the crowd. I don't want to have to tell somebody to be quiet. I don't want to rip somebody apart. Could I rip someone a new asshole? Yeah, I'm from Boston. Of course I can. I don't want to do it. I just don't want to do it. In my opinion, it creates a bad energy in the room, and it can even entice more of it. Like one person's. I've seen people in crowds be like, roast me. Like, you'll get people who want you to do. I don't want to do that. I don't want to roast you. I don't want to make you feel this big in front of strangers. I'm not interested in that. To me, it's very mean spirited, and that's not the kind of energy I want when I'm during my set. That's good for other people. Not during my set. I don't want to do that.
Yeah, right on, man. So as more of a traditional comic, who are your inspirations? Who did you think was funny? Who inspires you to write better jokes and get better? Like,
well, initially, Bill Cosby, when I was very young, was
sure.
There was a VHS tape I found in my house of Bill Cosby himself, which is just a great classic special. And then I found Eddie Murphy. And then I moved on to Richard Pryor. And so when I was young, these were the sort of specials I was watching. And then I went to Chris Rock when Chris Rock really blew up. That's what inspired me. Now that I've been doing comedy for a while, I still get inspired to be a better comic by watching and rewatching Louis C.K. For me.
Okay. Sure.
Sometimes I'll even have, like, if I have a bit that I'm working on. And when I say working on, it's like something I've probably tried on stage a couple times, and now and it's not really going where I want it to go, and now it's just sitting in my brain all the time. It's just kind of sitting in my subconscious. I'm thinking about it subconsciously for weeks while I do other things, and I'll get idea. It'll still be there. It's like my brain is working on the backside. In those moments, I find during those times something that I'll resort to help sort of kickstart an idea is I'll watch some Louis, and then
Nice.
sometimes that'll get me like, oh, I should come at it by this angle. Oh, let me come at this angle.
Yeah.
He'll get me kind of motivated to think about my joke differently and try to bring it to another level. So yeah, Louis, who's not, he's had his, a lot of people. I think a lot of people
Yeah.
stopped watching Louis. For
Yeah.
whatever you want to judge about his character, that you're free to do so. But I think, objectively speaking, he's one of the best stand-up comics working today. Still, in my that's my opinion.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah. Yeah.
He's great. He's great at it.
Right. It was like you mentioned Bill Cosby. I think we're close in age. Like my trajectory was kind of the same. I mean, you throw in a little Rodney Dangerfield and Howie Mandel and stuff, but also, definitely Bill Cosby, Eddie Murphy, Richard Pryor, Chris Rock. Like that was completely and we had, records like Bill Cosby records of him doing songs like Don't Boogie on My Face and he was comedically like just a hero of mine growing up. It's a weird thing when stuff like that happens because I still have his CDs. I still listen to them. You know what I mean? I can't not. They're funny. You know?
They're very
Uh,
fun. I mean, he's
yeah,
a master at it. He's a
yeah.
master.
It's so hard. Like I still, Dad is great. Give us chocolate cake. I still,
Yeah, that is great. Give us
yeah,
the
give
chocolate
us
cake.
chocolate
Oh
cake.
man,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
watched that special so much, man. I just thought
um,
that was I'd never seen a storyteller like that. I'd never
yeah,
seen a guy, to me that was like he was a magician,
yeah,
magician.
yeah.
I was very young, but I just was like, oh my God, wow.
Yeah, and then
I,
Delirious and Raw, and then man, just yeah. I hate that Eddie Murphy has kind of denounced his younger stand-up days as being crass or whatever, and not rooting, but because man, but they were hilarious.
they're
Like
very,
it's
very
just
good. Very, yeah, I know, I know, I know. I mean, I can kind of see where he's coming from because it was
yeah,
a lot of it was dirty and crass.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but he at the time, I mean, we're talking, he's like 20 years old, 21 years old. He was so young doing that stuff. So you got to kind of, he's an older person now, so his sense of humor has probably gotten more sophisticated as
Sure,
many of us, a lot of us will
sure.
go through that, right? Like what I laugh at now, I didn't laugh at a lot of the stuff that made me laugh when I was younger. Like I'd imagine if I went back and watched an Adam Sandler movie that I loved when I was
Right,
14,
right.
it's not gonna grab me like that. My humor is now sophisticated, so I
Yeah,
can see
yeah,
where he's coming from. Um, I kind of get that he's probably got a sophisticated sense of humor now, but you
yeah.
gotta, it's just one of it's like a stepping stool on his career. It's just a phase.
Right, right.
You gotta forgive yourself. That you gotta appreciate what the things you've accomplished to get to where you are now.
For sure.
Whatever, and so I mean, I wouldn't be embarrassed about it.
Right.
If it was me, I'd be happy to have that kind of career. To be honest with you, yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, speaking of Adam Sandler, like Steve Polychronopoulos still cracks me up, man. I will listen to that song like it's a song. I would sing it at the top of my freaking lungs, man. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Some of his stuff is definitely it was funnier when I was younger, but Steve
Yeah.
Polychronopoulos is great.
And some comedians that continue to do stand up. Eddie Murphy obviously stopped, but some you'll see comics still. They will get more sophisticated as they get older. Like now, when I get to see Dane Cook quite a bit because
I'm sure.
I'm at these clubs in Hollywood and he comes through. And growing up, I listened to Dane's CDs, and they were. I mean, one could argue they were kind of like goofy frat boy kind of humor, sort of back then. And he's from Boston, so he was kind of a local hero to all the comics. Uh, you know, but now I watch him now, and he's a different comic.
Yeah.
He's great. He's sophisticated. He does smart material, like stuff that you never. It's just he's evolved. He's
Yeah.
evolved,
Yeah.
and it's because he's gotten
Yeah.
older and better. And he's a married man now, and I don't know if he's got a family, but he's become sophisticated, and his humor has as well, and it's very good. It's very good, and I enjoy that. It's nice to see that.
Definitely. And I mean, honestly, like I was always a fan of Steve Martin and Martin Short and people like that. And I mean there was juvenile stuff, but then at the same time, some of their stuff was just so clever. And they've amped up the cleverness as they've gotten older. So it's definitely definitely cool to like watch people still be funny, but go in a different direction that fits where they're at. I mean, you kind of have to,
Well, you
That's what-
should if you know
yeah,
you should. I mean, otherwise, do you want to live a lie? That's a thing.
right,
Like I
for
want to
sure.
be truthful on stage. Personally, that's me. So I'm not going to get up there and say things that I really don't believe in,
Yeah, yeah,
or that really aren't me.
right,
So it would for Dane, if Dane got up there and did the same kind of frat boy humor that he did, in the early 2000s, that wouldn't be him. That wouldn't be
right.
him. He's evolved as an artist. I love to see it. I think it's great. I mean, a lot of people have put this man down over the years out
Mm,
of jealousy, maybe, or something. I
sure.
think he's great, and I still think he's great.
Yeah,
Worth
yeah.
buying a ticket if he comes through. Go see
Go
Dane,
see him.
man. He's
Right.
great now. Oh man,
Yeah,
he's
I could
so
imagine, like,
he is
him not
he
being funny.
is he is great. Great comic, man. I can't
Awesome,
speak highly enough of him.
awesome, man. Yeah, yeah. If he's ever around Southern Ohio, I
Yeah, I
guess it'd be
recommend
Southern
it.
Ohio or Indiana, Midwest. I'll check it out.
Oh man, he's so
I
great.
got
You won't be
geographically tongue
disappointed.
tied there for a minute, but
Yeah,
yeah,
you won't be
I
disappointed.
love Dana Carvey. So yeah. Um. So you mentioned Chris Rock. I am a pretty big Chris Rock fan. Not a big, not as much a fan of his movies, but I love his stand up. Um.
Great stand up.
Yeah, and I remember getting his CD and seeing like other writers credited and being really confused about that. And then I talked to Flobo Boyce. I don't know if you know who he is. He's another stand-up comedian, but I talked to him and he said that it's not really that these people are writing your jokes. It's more that you're bouncing ideas off of them. And that kind of because I was just like, man, are people just giving Chris Rock stuff to say? Which having the delivery is still cool, but that's something that I didn't even think about. Like that comedians have people who help them develop their jokes and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, I've never witnessed it firsthand,
Yeah,
but I've heard people occasionally. I'll hear stories about like a very famous comic who uh, has paid a couple comedians from the Comedy Store who aren't known
right.
to help them write. I don't know what that entails at
Yeah,
all.
yeah, yeah.
I heard the money was pretty good.
I'm sure.
Um,
Maybe you should try to get in on that.
yeah. So I know that it does happen. I don't know how it happens or
Right.
if they're just I would relish the opportunity to help
Yeah,
someone develop material. I'm very good at that. I'm very good at
yeah.
that. Now, the way I do it though, I mean, I can't just I don't know if I could sit in a room with some famous comic and like let's just start a joke from the bottom up, but
Right.
if I
Right.
if you take me to watch your set, we can then have a meeting and it will be productive. Let me watch your set and then I'll have ideas. I know what to do that way. And
Yeah,
I think I'd be very good at that. But no one's ever asked me to do that, or maybe someday, I don't know. But I'm a good
yeah.
joke writer. I'm good at writing. I should say specifically, I'm good at a stand-up comedy writer. I'm very good at, and
Right.
and I think I could contribute to somebody and elevate them. I've
Yeah,
helped some friends of mine for no money, just helping them. But it always comes like I watch their set and then I pull them aside after. I'm like, hey, this is this XYZ thing. Hey, you ought to try this and this and that. And I think you can take this here and this sort
sure,
of thing. I have a
sure.
knack for that, a gift for that. Maybe I could get paid to do it someday. That would be great. That would be great.
That'd be awesome.
I could
Yeah.
use the money. That would be
Yeah,
nice.
let's throw it out there, man. We'll throw it out in the
I
universe, see if it lands anywhere.
hope
Um,
so.
yeah, yeah. I'm a big Dick Van Dyke fan. And so when Flobo kind of explained it to me, I sort of pictured it the way that, Dick Van Dyke and Sally, and I can't think of the other guy's name off the top of my head, would write jokes in that room together for the Alan Brady. I don't know if you know any Dick Van Dyke references, but
Not really. I mean, I know who he is. Is he still alive even? He's still alive, I think,
I
right?
think he is, but he's in his 90s.
Yeah,
He's
in his
definitely
90s.
yeah, but man, that old show, the Dick Van Dyke Show with him and Mary Tyler Moore, is brilliant. So funny. Like if you like physical comedy and just jokes, I mean, there's stories, obviously because it was a sitcom for what it was, but I mean the jokes are just flying on that show, man. It's such a good show. Um, But yeah, so I guess once Flobo explained it to me, I kind of looked at it more like they're bouncing ideas around. But it was kind of a shock to see someone else's name on Chris Rock's CD as a writer. I was just like, what is this?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
It also could be Chris Rock trying to get some of his buddies paid.
yeah, for sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Because they get if you're, I mean, I assume if you're a writer on a
Oh yeah,
special and they sell a lot of records or CDs, you get there's royalties that come in. So maybe
yeah,
some guys that it could even be Chris Rock's opener that he
right,
takes
sure.
out on the road and he's like, I'm going to put your name in here as a writer. You're going to get a small check every month, just a little bit.
Yeah,
It could be a way of that one of these famous guys is helping their buddies. That could be too.
right.
And
That's
maybe
awesome. I didn't even think about that.
these it could be a way of giving back. And maybe these guys didn't really write any jokes for him, but they just were his openers during the year that he created that hour special. That could
Yeah,
be going on too. We don't
yeah,
know.
yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah, you have no idea. Speaking of opening, have you ever had some weird opening gigs? Like I've talked to people who have like opened for musicians and stuff.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, like what?
I've done the musician thing. That's tough
Yeah,
stuff.
how
I
does
won't
that
do it.
work?
I won't
Yeah,
do it anymore
yeah,
unless it's a lot of money. I won't do those anymore. It's hard.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, you're just being ignored basically. You're just kind of just. It's more like you're just talking to yourself. It's
Right.
what's going on. Yeah, nobody's sitting. Everybody's
Yeah,
talking because it's music. You're
yeah, yeah,
accustomed
yeah.
to. You don't even really have a chair usually. You're just kind of standing around and you're usually
Yeah,
talking to your friend, waiting for the act to come on. There
right.
are some. There are some. I do know some musical artists that will have a comedian opener, and
Uh-huh.
it works. My
Right.
buddy just opened for Smokey Robinson fairly recently up in the Bay,
Yeah.
and it works for Smokey because everyone's seated. They're older.
Mhm.
They're seated. It's
Right.
it's a very chill atmosphere. It's usually in a very nice lounge theater
Right.
thing that it begs for behave yourself sort of atmosphere. And
Right. Right.
so
Right.
and when he did it, he got a very good response because the crowd was behaved, older, and
Yeah.
they were respectful, and
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
they're like, oh, and they were down for it. They were just down for it. And so
Right.
for us, but like, could you imagine doing that for, you're not going to do that for Rage Against the Machine. You're
Right.
not going to,
Right.
they're going to throw batteries at you or something. That's what's going to happen. So
Yeah. Yeah.
it's also artist dependent.
Mhm.
But I think those opportunities are few and far between. First of all, musicians don't often do this, have a
Yeah.
comedian open. They did back in the day, but
Right.
it's very rare now. So it's a challenge. But if Smokey ever called me, I would do it.
Yeah. Sure.
But other than that, I'm probably going to turn that gig down. That's rough.
Maybe
Um,
Richard Marx. I saw Richard Marx, and it's a very calm experience.
that would work. Okay, Richard
Yeah.
Marx. Sure.
Yeah.
Maybe like a piano act would
Yeah,
work.
that's basically Rich. So Richard Marx does a very interesting show. Like he'll do kind of a one-man show, where he
Uh-huh.
has his guitar up at the front of the stage, his piano off to the side, and the backing music is played with a track, and then he's got a video playing in the back. And I
No
saw him at
band.
like an opera house, man.
So no
Like this,
band? He doesn't have a
no
band.
band, no
No
band,
band.
no band.
Wow.
Yeah,
Huh.
yeah, and I mean, it was a great show. His voice is still amazing, honestly.
Yeah.
But and he tells jokes. He's really funny.
And he tells
So
jokes. Okay.
yeah, he
That would
tells a lot
work.
of jokes. Yeah, yeah. So I
My
think it would
guess
work,
is though,
man.
my guess is though, Richard Marx, if he doesn't want to pay a band, he doesn't want to pay a
Yeah, he
comedian
probably
opener.
doesn't want to be an opener either. Yeah,
He's
there
trying
was.
to keep all the money. Richard
Yeah,
Marx is just squeaking by, I think. He's trying to keep
yeah,
all the
yeah,
money.
sure. Yeah, it
Yeah,
was
but
straight
that
Richard
would work.
Marx.
That would
Yeah,
work, that format. Or even like, sort of like a Frank Sinatra type lounge singer.
oh
That would
sure, yeah,
I think that would
yeah.
work. Like what's that guy's name? Bublé, Michael Bublé, something
Oh
like that.
yeah, for
I
sure.
think you could I
Josh
think you
Groban.
could like a Josh Groban, you probably
Yeah,
could open with a stand-up comic with guys like
yeah,
that. I think that would be okay. A full rock band or hip hop, I don't think it's going to
that'd be
happen.
wild. Yeah,
Yeah.
I remember in the '80s, like when comedians were kind of presented as rock stars. There was a few tours where they took comedians out with them, and I was just like, how? how is Cinderella, about to rock out with, there's some a comedian. It's just, unless it's Sam Kinison or somebody like that, I couldn't see
Sure,
it.
sure. But like
Yeah,
someone like Sam Kinison would never take a gig like that. So
right.
it's going to be some no name guy who's just
Yeah,
you're just thrown to the wolves at that point.
yeah,
That's tough.
wow.
That's
Yeah,
really really tough.
yeah,
And those crowds, especially like you can imagine a Cinderella crowd, for crying out loud. Like those fans of it. Like, what is
yeah.
this?
Right. I think I remember, like, specifically there was a show in upstate New York where Cinderella had a comedian opening for them. That's why I thought about that. Like
That
back
is
in the
so funny.
Yeah, yeah. And it's just like, it's got to be the toughest thing, you know? These people with their teased hair and freaking tight jeans waiting to rock out, and like you're up there telling jokes. It's like, man,
I
couldn't
mean,
imagine.
that is torture.
Yeah.
That is
Well,
torture.
I had another guest on who said that he likes opening for musicians because he said that they're there to get hyped up. And I don't know if he was talking about like hip hop or soul or R&B or what, but he said that like he goes out there and doesn't tell as many jokes. He just hypes up the crowd and gets them ready for
Yeah.
the to come out.
Sure, I guess you could that would
So
work
yeah,
actually. That would
yeah,
work. I mean, don't expect to get your jokes to squeeze your jokes in,
right,
but yeah, I guess you could get them going. And if you only
yeah,
had to do, if you only asked to do 10 minutes of that, I mean, maybe you
right.
could do that. But I mean, you 20 minutes of
It's
that, I
still
don't
got
think that's happening. 15
yeah, it's
minutes
still
of
got to be
that,
done.
that's tough. There's going to come a point where the hype is going to die down. They're just not going to
Yeah,
keep
yeah,
give it up for, give it up. At some point, they're not going to give it up anymore.
right,
Uh, so
right.
that I would be careful with that as well.
Yeah, for sure. So, I got a couple more questions and then we'll call it a night. But
Great.
what you performed in some pretty historic venues like for comedy, what would you say was like the coolest, like you played at Caroline's, right?
Oh yeah, well, yeah, a
Yeah,
long time
that's
ago in New York.
amazing. Like yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, that was cool. Yeah, Caroline's. I kind of forgot about Caroline's. They went out of business. I don't know what they are now. Are they still? Did someone buy it? I don't know.
I'm not
It,
sure. I just know in the '80s, man, Caroline's was,
I know.
Caroline's, the Comedy Factory, or the Laugh Factory. I meant to say, the Improv. Like they were such huge places.
Yeah, when I was in New York City, the Carolines was kind of the days had gone by already. It was kind of
Sure.
they were. You
Yeah.
could tell they were struggling to fill seats
Yeah.
and to pay rent in Times Square. Basically, they're basically in Times Square, so you can imagine the struggle at that point, given how rents went. Um, so I missed the heyday of that, but
Yeah.
I do remember having some good memories. Just being there and knowing what it is and what it was fabulous.
Right. Right.
That was great. Um, I,
I
I
mean,
I get to perform now. One of my favorite places to perform is the Comedy and Magic Club, which is down at Redondo Beach. That's been there for a long, long time, and that club is really, really fabulous. I really enjoy going down there. I worked at Laugh Factory clubs as well, and
yeah.
those are all. There's a lot of history in there too.
Yeah.
That one in Hollywood's been there for a very long time, and it does still have kind of an old vibe to it. And being on that stage, knowing that the kind of people that have been up on that stage. I mean, it's been everybody. It's been everybody.
Yeah.
So that's wonderful as well. Yeah. And then
Is there
even in Boston, I'm from Boston, and we had we got a club. It's still there. Nick's Comedy Stop has been there forever, man, and that's a big deal. I haven't been on that stage in a long, long time, but end of this summer, I'm hoping to go headline there for a weekend. But that club's been there a long, long time, and I have great memories of being there. That's kind of where I started, and that club's still there. And I get excited thinking about going back and performing there, to be honest with you. So I'm hoping to make that work. Um, Maybe in the fall, late summer, fall would be great. But yeah, I've been very lucky to work these iconic places. It's not Madison Square Garden. I'm not there yet, but maybe one day. We'll see. I would love to perform in Fenway Park for real.
Yeah. Yeah.
So a few
That'd be
I've
something.
seen, yeah, a few comics have done that, and so like Bill Burr's done that, and so I'm like, oh, if I could ever do that, that would be insane.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or
Um,
the Garden, the TD Garden. Oh man, I would lose my mind.
right. Yeah. Go home and man.
Yeah, yeah, that would be a dream. That would be a
Yeah.
dream.
Sure.
Pinch me.
Yeah. Um, yeah. So are there like walls? Do you get to like see the names and stuff? Because I know that like some rock clubs, there's a wall that everyone who plays signs. Are comedy places like that too? Like,
Yeah, usually in the green rooms, you'll
yeah,
see they're covered in black Sharpie
man.
scribblings of some, and usually comics will write something as well as their name. They'll write something funny or something stupid
Yeah.
or whatever. The Comedy Store is different in that it's all on the outside of the club on the walls.
Oh,
So
cool.
yeah, they paint
Cool, cool.
the name over, and not anybody can paint. They have to do it. They paint.
Oh, okay.
I tried to write my own name on there, and they arrested me. So that's a fail. I'm
Yeah.
kidding.
Well,
I didn't do that.
yeah,
But they're all on the outside of the building, so you can
okay.
see that. Anyone, if you drive by, you can see all those names. In it's a black building with white names scribbled all over it.
That's awesome.
The majority of the joints have like a green room, and in there you'll see that kind of thing. And sometimes, I mean, there's not even any. There'll be no room to write on there. You know, it'll just be
Yeah,
covered,
yeah, yeah.
covered. And your first time there as a comic, you might just be in the green room, just reading all of them, which is
Right,
That's pretty cool. That's really
right.
really cool. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah. That's really 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 great. Yeah, that's a thing. That's a thing that we do, like bands. Same
yeah.
thing.
That's awesome, man. All right. Well, um, before we before we get out of here, is there anything you want to plug? Anything you got going on? Um,
Well, I
this,
just I predominantly plug my podcast because that's
yeah,
the thing I do, every day. So, if your listeners enjoy my storytelling style and my voice isn't grinding in your ears and you think you can handle it, I'll do a 5 day a week weird news podcast where I cover current news, but it's just bizarre and weird, the weirdest stuff that I can find, and most of it's funny too, which is good. And then I try to make it funny by my delivery, and I try and write jokes for every story, every news segment as well, and I just try to embellish them. So
right.
it's not just somebody reading your news like a newscast person would do, all robotic and stupid. No, I kind of bring some personality to it, and I try to beef it up with jokes or a personal story if it relates to me, or maybe my weird opinion. And so weird AF News is where it's at, and it's available on all podcast players and even YouTube as well. And my Instagram's at Funny Jones, and that's where I put up where I'm performing and in some personal things in my life or sketches that I might shoot or something. Yeah, whatever I might be eating.
Yeah, that's always a popular one, putting up your dinner.
Man, I know my food pictures get more likes than anything else on there. It's
Yeah.
unbelievable. What the heck,
I
man?
have
People.
I was just going to say, I have a buddy who's a pretty successful lawyer. And for the longest, he would just put up his food on social media, and it would make me so hungry. I'm like, dude,
Oh, it'll do that.
you eat the best food I've ever seen in my life.
Oh,
You
what
know?
a lucky bastard!
Yeah, yeah.
Doesn't even share it with you. What the hell,
No,
man?
well, he's in Arizona,
Oh,
so
all right. Well,
it's, yeah. Unfortunately, can't ship it to me. Um, it has been wild watching the screen just get darker and darker because I'm three
yeah,
hours behind you. I'm
I
like
noticed
practically in
that.
the shadows now.
You got to
But
get a
or three
light.
hours ahead, I guess. But but yeah, man. I want to thank you so much for coming on. This has been cool. I appreciate the stories. That's really what this podcast is about. So,
I'm
um,
I'm I'm uh I'm honored to be on and grateful. So thank you, and I'll be more than happy to share it when you're done. Just let me know how I can help.
for sure, man. And I want to thank, as always, my producer Tyler Martin and Emmy Studios. He's going to make this thing sound good and look good. Maybe
Shout
bright.
out to Tyler.
Yeah, Tyler's the guy, man. It is true that anybody can have a podcast, but when you're not technically skilled, you need someone who is. So
You need a Tyler.
yeah, you need a Tyler, man. Tyler's my guy. Um, Next week we're going to be interviewing Ronnie Barnett from the Muffs. I am so excited to do that, man. I love the Muffs, so that's going to be a
Cool.
good time. Yeah. Um, so yeah, man.
Living the
Thanks,
dream,
everybody.
baby. You're living
Yeah,
the dream, baby.
bro. In the last couple months, I have literally interviewed some of my heroes. It's been insane. Well, honestly,
Oh,
over the
that's
last
so
year or so.
cool.
Yeah, I had. I don't know if you're familiar with Dramarama. But
No.
okay, so Dramarama is my favorite band. Anything, anything. They had a hit in the '80s called "Anything, Anything." A lot of people know that song, but don't know the band. Um, John Easdale, who is their singer, songwriter, producer, basically the guy. came on my show, and I spent an hour and a half just telling him how amazing he was. It was probably the worst show ever. But it was just like, I tried so hard to just ask questions and be cool. I just couldn't do it. But now, like, we text each other on holidays and stuff, and it's so freaking awesome.
There you go. You connected with a hero, and now you got a friend out of it. That's even better.
Yeah, it's freaking fire, man. But yeah, everybody. So Ronnie Barnett next week. I want to thank everybody so much for tuning in, man. This month has been huge for us. Our numbers have been better than they have been the whole time we've been doing the podcast. So I think people are finally starting to check us out. So keep checking us out. We're on Spotify. We're on YouTube. We're on pretty much everywhere you can get podcasts. And I've been your host, Keith, and we will see you next week for more Most Excellent Entertainment.